Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. In a small, unassuming town known as Maplewood, the chill of late autumn settled heavily on the streets, gradually blanketing them in an array of crisp, fallen leaves. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying foliage, a bittersweet reminder that winter was just around the corner. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other, where doors could be left unlocked at night, and children played outside until dusk. Yet, beneath this veneer of tranquility lay the undercurrents of something dark and unspeakable, poised to shatter Maplewood's sense of security. On the morning of November 4th, 2019, the serene facade of the town was irrevocably wounded. As the first rays of sunlight pierced through the thick clouds, illuminating the quaint streets, the peaceful routine of its residents was disrupted by the chilling news. A local woman had gone missing. Emily Carter, a beloved teacher at Maplewood High, was no stranger to the community. With her warm smile and optimistic spirit, she was known for encouraging her students to pursue their dreams. But now, in the face of her sudden disappearance, the townsfolk were left grappling with a suffocating sense of fear and confusion. Friends and family gathered, their worried faces casting shadows on the usual gathering places. Whispers filled the cafes and parks, a whirlwind of speculation and anxiety swirling in the air. Authorities, too, began turning over leaves of their own, questioning neighbors and friends, hoping to secure any clue that might lead them to Emily's whereabouts. But with each passing hour, the feeling of dread began to settle in, a darkness creeping closer to the heart of Maplewood. The victim, Emily Carter, was more than just a figure at Maplewood High. She was a beacon of hope for many. At nearly 30 years old, she had dedicated her life to nurturing the minds of her students, imparting knowledge and fostering creativity in an environment she believed should be inspired. With roots that ran deep in the town, her family, having lived in Maplewood for generations, Emily embodied the essence of community. Those who knew her spoke of her kindness, laughter, and unwavering commitment to education. As the sun slipped behind the horizon on the night of her disappearance, a montage of Emily's life played in the minds of those who loved her. She would often organize book fairs at the school, passionately encouraging not just reading, but also community involvement. Neighbors had come together to support her causes at every turn. Yet for a woman who brought so much light into others' lives, there lay shadows she kept hidden. Emily had recently confided in her best friend, Sarah, about feeling an unsettling pressure. She hadn't said much beyond just hints of stress related to work, and a few vague mentions of someone who had made her feel uncomfortable. Sarah recalled Emily's unease, the way it flickered across her face like a candle in the wind. But denial kept them from digging deeper. After all, they lived in Maplewood, and what could possibly threaten their serene existence? As the community rallied to search for her, posters with Emily's bright smile began to dot utility poles and storefronts, stark reminders of the void she left. Each flyer told a story, but none revealed the hidden facets of the woman they desperately sought. It was as if her life was a puzzle missing pieces, leaving behind a picture that was incomplete, hauntingly familiar, and tragically unknown. The crime scene. It was on the afternoon of November 5th, 2019, when a break in the case came unexpectedly. A local handyman, out on his routine rounds, noticed something amiss near a dense thicket on the outskirts of Maplewood. The trees loomed large, their gnarled branches swaying gently in the crisp breeze, creating a tableau of shadows that danced sinisterly across the fallen leaves. As he approached, An unsettling sensation washed over Hyman instinct that urged him to retreat, yet something compelled him to press on. What he discovered hardly resembled the enchanting scenery that characterized the town. Deep within the brush, concealed by the undergrowth, lay Emily's car. Its doors were ajar, and the interior was unsettlingly empty, with personal items strewn randomly about a handbag and a scattered collection of student notes. The sight sent tremors through his body, anxiety sharpening into panic. He dialed 911 with trembling fingers, knowing he had stumbled upon a pivotal moment in this dark chapter of Maplewood's story. When the police arrived, the atmosphere shifted. Crime scene investigators meticulously combed the area, their uniforms stark against the warm autumn palette of red and gold. Every inch of the vicinity was scoured, while families huddled in hushed groups at a distance, exchanging worried glances as they awaited news. The scene held an unsettling quiet, broken only by the rustle of leaves and the distant chatter of sirens. Among the evidence collected were strands of hair caught in the car door, a potential lifeline that might lead them to Emily. As details unfurled, the realization that someone had crossed a line into violence began to take hold. The idyllic image of Maplewood began to fracture beneath the surface. The community's reality was unraveling. A sense of disbelief hung heavily as Lucy, a fellow teacher, watched the unfolding chaos, unable to accept the tragedy that touched her life. "I thought we were safe here," she murmured, tear etched across her face. It was a grim reminder that even in a place where children played freely, darkness lurked ever so close, laying in wait. The early investigation. As the sun dipped below the horizon on the second day of Emily Carter's disappearance, the Maplewood Police Department expanded their efforts. The initial confusion was replaced by a methodical investigation, spearheaded by Detective Mark Jennings, a seasoned officer with a reputation for cutting through the noise. Jennings arrived at the crime scene, his sharp gaze assessing the haphazard arrangement of Emily's belongings. He set to work immediately, directing a team of investigators who worked like clockwork, efficiently cataloging every piece of evidence. Police canvassed the area, interviewing anyone who might have seen or heard something unusual in the days leading up to her disappearance. As Jennings moved through the small, tightly knit community, a narrative began to emerge. Neighbors voiced their concerns about a man named Tom Richards, someone residing just down the street from Emily's family home. He had a reputation of erratic behavior, frequently seen loitering, and sometimes appearing at the school events, despite not having children at Maplewood High. While Jennings scrutinized the witness statements, he also became attuned to the atmosphere of fear that had taken root in Maplewood. Discussions that had once revolved around local sports teams and upcoming events were now dominated by hushed whispers and anxious side glances. Emily's disappearance had struck a chord deep within the hearts of the residents. They felt vulnerable. Leaving them exposed to the chill of uncertainty. As hours turned into days, Emily's absence felt more like an open wound. The police held press conferences, pleading for tips while emphasizing the importance of community vigilance. The town rallied, organizing search parties, scouring the woods and fields in hope of uncovering vital clues. Tension mounted with every passing moment. The dread of what might have occurred intensified, because in Maplewood, the truth was becoming increasingly elusive, hidden beneath layers of quiet despair. Reports of Tom Richards' strange behavior became more pronounced, prompting investigators to focus their attention on him. They began to assemble a clearer picture of the man unstable, often isolated, his interactions tinged with a mixture of urgency and delusion. Yet, with each inquiry, it remained evident that despite the swirling suspicions, the evidence was frustratingly thin. And a single key to unlock this chilling mystery remained just out of reach. The dead ends. Days turned to weeks, and the relentless search for Emily took a toll not only on the investigators, but also on the entire community, which seemed to teeter on the brink of despair. Detective Mark Jennings felt the weight of every unanswered question pressing upon him as he spent long nights poring over case files, his desk cluttered with notes and leads that seemed to go nowhere. Reports about potential sightings of Emily surfaced, but they often fizzled out like a half-formed thought, nothing substantial enough to warrant a solid lead. The investigation into Tom Richards bore some fruit when police discovered he had a history of mental health issues, punctuated by erratic outbursts. One ex-girlfriend hinted at his obsessive behavior, claiming he had fixated on other women in the past. Yet, every novelty of a lead soon morphed into a dead end. There were no concrete ties linking him to Emily or her disappearance. Each time Jennings would think he was close to a breakthrough, the thread would unravel. Meanwhile, Emily's family grappled not only with their grief, but also with the palpable anxiety of the unknown. Weekly vigils drew in friends, colleagues, and concerned residents from all walks of life, each silently hoping their presence could somehow cast a protective spell against the encroaching dark. Yet, the more they gathered, the more helpless they felt. And once left, felt impossibly vast. In a pivotal meeting with his team, Jennings laid out the facts. They had a Masita timeline of Emily's last known movements, witness accounts with inconsistencies, and elusive suggestions of strange behavior from townsfolk who had crossed paths with Tom. A pervading sense of frustration loomed in the air as they realized the threads of possibility didn't point to a singular conclusion, but rather spun a disheartening web of confusion. As time slipped away like sand through fingers, the challenge before them grew exponentially more daunting. Each passing day with no resolution deepened the divide between fear and hope within the community. Halloween decorations still lingered on porches, haunted now with a sense of foreboding, while the fervor and vibrancy of Maplewood were gradually siphoned away by the weight of uncertainty. This was no longer just a case. It was a haunting refrain that echoed through the streets, shaping the very essence of their beloved town. A break in the case. The deep chill of November settled over Maplewood as Thanksgiving approached. Yet dark clouds loomed thicker than the November fog. Detective Mark Jennings had almost resigned himself to the grim reality. The search for Emily Carter was becoming a cold case. New rumors about her whereabouts circulated in whispers among the townsfolk, but none bore an ounce of truth. That is, until the morning of November 30th, when an anonymous tip finally emerged, offering a glimmer of renewed hope. The call came in just before dawn, a male voice, shaky and fraught with urgency, spoke through the receiver as Jennings pressed the phone tight to his ear. "I heard something," the man said, identifying himself as a local contractor who had been working along the edges of Maplewood's wooded areas. He hesitated, as if weighing the significance of what he had to say. I saw some things. Strange things." The man described a series of distinct sounds, a muffled cry echoing through the trees, followed by moments of unsettling silence. It was enough to warrant immediate attention. Jennings, alongside a team of officers, met the contractor at a remote part of the thicket where he claimed to have heard the sounds. The atmosphere was heavy with anticipation as they pushed through the dense brush, the footsteps muffled by layers of fallen leaves. Their flashlights created narrow beams that sliced through the darkness, revealing twisted branches and overgrown underbrush. The contractor led them deeper into the woods, stopping at an overturned log where he said the cries had originated. What they discovered was hardly what anyone had anticipated. Tucked beneath the log were weathered belongings, some clothing, a battered cell phone, and the unmistakable initials EC scribbled in faded ink on a notebook. Within the notebook's pages, words rushed forth with urgency and emotion. Sketches of students and lessons. And amidst the assortment of pages, fragments of a personal journal hinted at a darker narrative. As the officers carefully collected the evidence, Jennings felt a surge of adrenaline. This could be the breakthrough they had sought for so long. After returning to the precinct, he delved into the notebook's words, piecing together Emily's life moments of joy alongside glimpses of fear. Through her scrawled notes, it was clear that times had grown increasingly tense. As she recounted feeling watched, her once invigorating role as a teacher shadowed by something unexplainable. In that moment, the veil of hopelessness lifted slightly as Jennings stared at the evidence in front of him. The gears were finally starting to turn, and the detective sensed that they had crossed a precipice into an uncertain yet promising territory. Now, the challenge remained connecting these fragments to a narrative, and ultimately to Emily. The suspect. With the discovery of Emily's belongings, the investigation took a significant turn. Detective Mark Jennings examined the notebook with a laser focus, hoping to uncover clues hidden within the lines of her handwriting. As he meticulously transcribed the contents, a rising tension hung in the air, offering a palpable urgency. It became evident to Jennings that Emily had not just been grappling with everyday pressures, but had also sensed an impending dread that echoed through her words, a conflict buried beneath the surface of her composed exterior. The journal detailed instances of peculiar encounters, notably with Tom Richards, the man whose erratic behavior had caught the attention of investigators early on. In one entry, Emily recounted a seemingly harmless exchange that had escalated into something disconcerting. "Tom keeps trying to talk to me after school," she wrote, her pen scratching against the paper with a mix of annoyance and unease. "I thought he was harmless, just lonely, but I can't shake this feeling. Sometimes there's a look in his eyes." This revelation sent ripples of alarm through Jennings. He quickly ordered the examination of Richard's background and any potential connections to Emily. It wasn't long before officers discovered a series of run-ins Tom had had with local law enforcement, or altercations and harassment charges spanning over several years. Each encounter painted a portrait of instability and emotional volatility. While his past indicated troubling behavior, Jennings knew that mere suspicion wouldn't suffice for a proper investigation. They needed concrete evidence linking Richards to Emily's disappearance. The next day, under the pretense of routine follow-up questioning, officers approached Tom at his home, seeking to engage him further. They found him in the garage, surrounded by tools and remnants of unfinished projects items, suggesting a man who had long abandoned ambition and purpose. Underneath layers of disheveled clothing. Tom wore an expression that oscillated between anxiety and aggression. The officers greeted him politely, but it quickly became evident that the tension in the air intensified as they pressed him about his connections to Emily. Tom's responses were evasive, punctuated by nervous laughter that made the hair on the back of Jennings' neck stand on end. "Why are you asking about her?" Why are you asking about her?" "I was just a friend," he stammered, shifting his weight back and forth. Behind his eyes, Jennings sensed a storm brewing. Something unrestrained lurked just beneath the surface, poised to break free. Back at the precinct, Jennings reviewed the footage from the interviews, searching for anything that might stand out. It was during a moment of hesitation, a fleeting glance cast toward the side, that something clicked. That quick flicker of fear in Tom's eyes rang alarm bells in Jennings' mind. They had their suspect. It was time to dig deeper into his past. Time to peel back the layers concealing the truth and expose the heart of the darkness that had ensnared Maplewood. The trial. As winter settled over Maplewood, the community's quiet grief transformed into a collective will for justice. The trial of Tom Richards was set to begin in late January. News of the proceedings spread like wildfire, and the courtroom filled with familiar faces, each person hoping to glean clarity from the chaos that had enveloped their town since Emily's disappearance. The air was thick with tension as families shuffled into their seats, parents clutching their children tightly, gripping the innocent hands that had once danced in the sun, oblivious to the darkness lurking just out of sight. When the gavel fell, marking the initiation of the trial, Detective Mark Jennings watched intently from the gallery. The prosecution laid out a timeline of events that painted a persuasive yet harrowing picture. Emily's journal entries were read aloud to her, fears laid bare in the public domain, offering raw insights into the deterioration of her sense of safety. Each entry became a dagger in the hearts of those present, exposing the vulnerability of a woman whom they had all loved and cherished. The courtroom's atmosphere shifted as witness after witness took the stand. Friends recalled Emily's anxious demeanor over the past months. Teachers shared stories of her suddenly retreating into solitude, and the contractor who uncovered her belongings described the eerie sounds that haunted him on that fateful afternoon. Each voice added layers to the narrative, deepening the ache that enveloped the room. Richard's defense attorney countered with a relentless barrage of tactics, attempting to cast doubt on the prosecution's case. "What you have here," he argued, "is a series of coincidences and hearsay. Tom Richards has been a target of scrutiny, but that doesn't equate to guilt." The attorney sought to portray Tom as a harmless man suffering from mental illness and unfortunate scapegoat in a tragic scenario that spiraled out of control. Yet, as the trial progressed, it became increasingly clear that Emily was more than just a victim. She was a voice that resonated deeply within the courtroom. During closing arguments, Jennings watched as the prosecutor evoked the image of Emily standing in front of her class, her passion and warmth juxtaposed against the cold reality of her fate. When the prosecutor implored the jury, "Let us not allow his instability to blind us to the truth," he fingered the edge of the evidence that had accumulated: her entries, her lost potential, her life snuffed out too soon. The jury deliberated, the ticking clock amplifying the collective anxiety. As the hours dragged on, Murmurs filled the courthouse hallway, fear and uncertainty weaving a tapestry of doubt. Would the threads of evidence hold strong enough to convict? Then, as dawn broke the horizon, the jury returned, solemn and unyielding. With bated breath, the courtroom strained to listen as the foreperson declared, "We find the defendant, Tom Richards, guilty of the murder of Emily Carter." A wave of shock washed through the room amid gasps and muffled tears. Relief and sorrow intertwined. A cathartic release that resonated deeply. For Maplewood, the verdict was not just a conclusion to a painful chapter. It was a beacon of hope, a reminder of resilience amid darkness. Emily Carter's name would not fade into the background. Her story would echo through the town, urging them toward unity and healing in an unwavering testament that even in the clutches of despair, the truth would always fight to rise. The aftermath. In the weeks following the trial verdict, Maplewood began the slow, arduous journey back to normalcy, a phrase that felt ominous yet necessary. The shadow of Emily Carter's absence continued to loom, but the community rallied together in a display of steadfast unity. Murmurs became conversations. Conversations turned into action. With every sunrise, residents made efforts to reclaim their sense of safety, joining in candlelight vigils and support groups that sprouted around a shared grief rather than fear. Detective Mark Jennings, now a familiar face in the town, took it upon himself to facilitate forums where residents could discuss their concerns and share experiences of vulnerability. He was determined to foster a sense of transparency, empowering citizens to speak out and look out for one another. The outpouring of support was palpable, even as lingering questions remained unanswered. In Emily's memory, the high school launched a foundation dedicated to mental health awareness and prevention programs, eager to ensure that the signs Emily identified in her journal would not be overlooked in the future. Students led initiatives, organizing workshops and assemblies, pouring their energy into something meaningful, transforming heartache into hope. Emily's story became a cornerstone for advocacy that they fervently believed would save others. Meanwhile, the town of Maplewood grappled with lingering emotions related to trust and safety. Sarah, Emily's closest friend, found herself haunted by memories both cherished and shrouded in pain. She started a blog chronicling her journey, a space for others to share their own experiences with loss and trauma. Slowly, the stitches of connection closed the wounds and healed hearts within the community. Yet, the haunting reality of losing someone so vibrant weighed heavily upon everyone. Small gatherings were often interspersed with pensive silence, as memories resurfaced fragments of laughter and light against the dim backdrop of recent events. Emily's vacant desk in the classroom became a poignant reminder of how fragile life could be. Her absence felt like an echo resonating through the hallways. On one of those quiet evenings, as a distant snowfall blanketed Maplewood in white, Jennings stood at the edge of the woods where Emily's belongings had been found. The early evening light flickered through the trees, casting shadows that seemed to dance with memories. He thought of her journal filled with vivid depictions of youth, dreams, fear, and fragility, an indelible mark left behind. Though the outcome of the trial had brought a semblance of closure for Jennings and many others, it was merely the beginning of an ongoing process. They carried the weight of their experiences forward, each day a testament to the resilient spirit of Maplewood. A spirit born from tragedy but tempered with hope, forever intertwined with the memory of a teacher who inspired so many. The struggle for healing continued, but in their hearts, the community cherished Emily Carter not as a victim, but as a force for change and compassion that would shape their future. Reflection. As the seasons changed, Maplewood transformed in more ways than one. The heavy weight of winter began to melt away, revealing the vibrant greens and hues of spring. With each passing day, the community found strength in their shared vulnerability, a bond forged through collective grief and healing. Yet within that resilience, the haunting reality of Emily Carter's tragedy lingered, permeating the fabric of their lives in unexpected yet profound ways. Detective Mark Jennings often walked the familiar paths of the town, reflecting on the impact of the case that had indelibly marked his career. He marveled at how the grieving had turned into action, how Emily's story became a beacon of awareness about mental health, about standing against the tides of violence and isolation. The outpouring of support for the foundation in her name, along with the workshops and assemblies, underscored a new philosophy that encouraged open dialogues and raised voices, ensuring Emily's legacy resonated beyond the shadow. One evening, during a community remembrance event honoring Emily, Jennings stood amongst familiar faces, each lit by glimmers of flickering candles. He realized that although they had lost her, they were not entirely adrift. They had found purpose in her memory, a shared journey towards understanding and awareness. What remained was a continued commitment to watch over one another, binding the community together in solidarity. While not a day passed without a thought of Emily, the hearts of the townspeople began to heal. They learned to embrace the fragility of life and the safety that could arise from vigilance and empathy. In those moments of reflection, it became clear: darkness may come for us, but the light of compassion and unity would always shine bravely in its wake, illuminating the path forward.